The more you learn without acting, the more you train yourself to stay stuck. You wake up with intention. You tell yourself today is the day you finally start. The project, the business, the idea that's been sitting in your mind for months, maybe even years. But instead of starting, you open YouTube, or a podcast, or an article. Just one more thing before I begin. 1 turns into 5. 5 turns into a spiral. By the end of the day, your brain is full, but your life is unchanged. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say. You're not stuck because you lack knowledge. You're stuck because you have too much of it, and none of it is being used. We live in the most information-rich era in human history. Every answer is one search away. Every skill is one tutorial away. Every strategy is already explained. And yet, people are more paralyzed than ever. Because learning has become a substitute for doing. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But it's not. It's a loop. A safe, comfortable loop where you never have to risk failure because you never actually try. This is the paradox of knowledge. The more you consume without action, the less capable you become of acting at all. And if you don't break this cycle, you won't just stay where you are. You'll slowly lose the ability to move forward at all. Your brain is easy to trick. Every time you learn something new, you get a small hit of satisfaction, a sense that you're improving, growing, becoming better. But here's the problem. Your brain doesn't distinguish between real progress and perceived progress. So when you watch another tutorial, read another book, or listen to another podcast, your brain rewards you as if you've already applied it. You feel accomplished without accomplishing anything. That's why endless learning becomes addictive. It gives you the emotional reward of growth without the discomfort of effort. Because real action, that's different. Action is messy, uncertain, uncomfortable. It exposes your lack of skill. It forces you to confront failure. It demands energy, risk, and patience. Learning, on the other hand, is clean, controlled, predictable. So what do most people do? They choose the comfort of information over the chaos of execution. And over time, this creates a dangerous illusion. You start believing you're progressing when you're actually standing still. Worse, you begin to rely on learning as a shield, a way to delay the moment where you have to prove yourself in reality. Because as long as you're still learning, you never have to face the truth of what happens when you try.
There's a voice in your head that sounds logical. It says, I just need a little more information before I start. More clarity, more strategy, more preparation. And it feels responsible, even intelligent. But it's not. It's fear, disguised as discipline. Because here's what's really happening. You're waiting to feel ready. And that moment will never come. There will always be another video to watch, another book to read, another method to compare. And the more you consume, the worse it gets. Why? Because information doesn't always clarify, it often complicates. You start encountering conflicting advice, different strategies, opposing opinions, and suddenly, instead of clarity, you have confusion. Instead of direction, you have hesitation. Instead of action, you freeze. This is the perfection trap. The belief that you need to know everything before you do anything. But perfection is not a prerequisite for action, it's the byproduct of it. Every expert you admire didn't start with mastery. They started messy. They learned by doing, not by endlessly preparing. So if you're waiting until you feel ready, understand this. You're not preparing to succeed. You're preparing to delay. Here's something most people ignore. Knowledge has an expiration date. If you don't use it, you lose it. Think about all the things you've learned over the past year. Books you've read, videos you've watched, ideas that inspired you.
how much of it are you actually using today? Probably less than you think, because information without application doesn't stick. It fades. Your brain discards what it doesn't need, what it doesn't see being used in real life. So every time you consume without acting, you're not just wasting time, you're training your brain to forget. And worse, you're training yourself to hesitate. You build a habit of inaction, a pattern where learning becomes the end point, not the starting point. Over time, this erodes something deeper, your confidence. Because confidence doesn't come from knowing, it comes from doing, from trying, failing, adjusting, and improving. When you don't act, you don't get feedback, and without feedback, you don't grow. So you stay stuck in theory, detached from reality. And the gap between what you know and what you do keeps widening, until eventually, you don't trust yourself to act at all. If learning isn't the answer, what is? Action. Not reckless action, but early action. Because action does something information never can. It gives you feedback. Real, immediate, unfiltered feedback. You learn what works, what doesn't, what needs to change. And that feedback is infinitely more valuable than any theory. Because it's yours. It's grounded in reality, not abstraction. This is where most people get it backwards. They think learning comes first, then action. But in truth, they are intertwined. You learn a little, then act, then learn again, then refine. It's a cycle, not a sequence. And the faster you enter that cycle, the faster you grow. That's why taking action sooner, even imperfectly, is so powerful. It collapses time. It accelerates understanding. It forces clarity. And it builds momentum. Because once you start, something shifts. You stop thinking so much. You start adapting. And suddenly progress becomes real, not theoretical. So instead of asking, what else do I need to learn? Start asking, what can I do with what I already know?
Here's the rule that changes everything. For every hour you spend learning, spend 2 hours applying. No exceptions. Because the goal is not to become the most informed person in the room. The goal is to become the most effective. And effectiveness comes from execution. Not ideas, not plans, not knowledge. Execution. So start small. Take one concept you've learned and use it today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Write the first post. Build the first version. Make the first attempt. It won't be perfect. It's not supposed to be. Because progress is always messy at the beginning. But that mess is where growth lives. That friction is where transformation happens. And every time you act, you break the loop. The loop of endless consumption. The loop of hesitation. The loop of one more thing before I start. So here's your challenge. Stop watching after this. Don't open another video. Don't search for more advice. Take one step. Because the truth is simple and brutal. If you don't act on what you know, all that knowledge becomes weight. And eventually, it buries you.
If this conversation gave you something to think about, a new perspective, or even a small sense of clarity, then this channel is for you. Consider joining this growing community by subscribing and leave a like on the video so more people searching for answers can find these ideas too. Your support keeps these conversations alive. Until the next video, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep pondering life's journeys.